How's it going, guys? Welcome back to Saints, Priests, and Watchmen and our series Invest in Eternity. And this will be the third part and final of this. And we talked about how to have a relationship with Jesus, and in growing in that relationship with Him, the things that happen when we use what He gives us, when we apply the talents, when we invest in Him. He gives us more of Himself. More and more and more is revealed as we apply what He has given us. So the more time we spend with Him and the more we learn about Him, the more and more of Him keeps coming. Those who have will have even more, and those who have little will have nothing. And that's the thing. It's the guy puts it in the ground and doesn't use it. He does nothing with it. He doesn't spend any time with the Lord. He doesn't witness. He doesn't spend any effort on showing others what the Lord's done in his life or in her life. And that's the issue. You know, and we go into the third phase of it where, you know, even in trials and persecution, we still follow the commands of Christ. We're still charitable. We're still loving. We're still forgiving, even in the hardest of times, showing the Spirit of God through ourselves, through submission, through trust and obedience in Jesus Christ. That's investing in eternity. And the problem we're having is that we can't understand what truth is. We're surrounded by false teachers. We're surrounded by false prophets, people who have intention of selfish gain. They have no real concern for the people of God. Granted, what I'm saying isn't every preacher, every priest, isn't every, situation. He says, Jesus says that we can know them by their fruit. So he gives you an example, a bad tree can't produce good fruit, right? And a good tree can't produce bad fruit. So it is what it is. You know them by their fruits. So you look at Jesus Christ, and this is God sent as a man, God in the flesh. There was a big ruckus in heaven behind this. The angels, Lucifer and some others, refused to accept Jesus. Okay? They refused. Wouldn't happen. God in human form, absolutely not. Now, this is a common teaching actually among the Orthodox, Greek Orthodox, Coptic, and in the Orthodox churches. This is a strong belief that they have, because in our Bible we don't have it, but regardless, we see Satan falling from his secure position in heaven. And that is a reality, because we like to believe, and we're being taught today, that it's perfectly okay to live a carnal lifestyle, that the Lord will love you anyway and will forgive you, and it's all good. And then they pass a collection plate. And this is a problem, because it's similar to the issue with Balaam in the Old Testament. And we're going to do another video on that, because that's actually a really awesome story. But you see, for profit, for money, people are willing to compromise God's laws and His truth. And Jesus taught this. The apostles taught this. It's everywhere. But you're not going to hear this in church because it's about them. So we have signals and signs that warn us about these folks. If they're, all about their title, that's a problem. If they're all about title, that is not Jesus, man. It's not. The guy rode a donkey, okay? A donkey. He borrowed a donkey from somebody else. He gave everything he had to the poor, okay? Explain it to me how we justify these lifestyles. And it's not an attack on all organized religion. It's the fruit, man. It's the fruit. The warning sign. You look in Matthew 9:36, and Jesus saw the people and had compassion for them. So the Lord reveals Himself to us. He gives us the opportunities to know Him, but He also warned us about these situations. He specified in Matthew chapter 7 that we need to beware of false prophets because they come in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they're ravenous wolves. Why would He warn us about it if it wasn't a problem? And you look back in the situation with Balaam and Ballack and all that, and you see Balaam showed Ballack how to entice the Israelites to commit fornication and adultery with foreigners and to eat food sacrificed to idols. And guess what? They were in trouble. 24,000 of them died of a plague. They were over there minding their own business. And guess what? They moved on them. They got some good-looking ladies over there and got them, sleeping with these pagan women who worship demons and all kind of craziness, and they were eating food sacrificed to idols. And this was a people that knew God, that followed God, but that's what happens when poison is introduced to us. So we have to watch out. And it's not like they weren't warned. If you look, the Lord had them encamped around the mountain in a big circle, and He explained His commands by His own voice. They were given the law and the Torah. They were given the instruction manual. All they had to do was follow it. It said to stay away from those people. That's it. How simple is that? Don't do it. And they did it anyway. So in our case, it's a little more trivial. Because this concept of the law is dead is alive today. We are being taught that the law is to be thrown in the garbage, that we're no longer bound to it. So that encourages an ungodly and carnal lifestyle. And there's no such thing as carnal Christianity. There's no such thing. That's not That's not real. Because then Christianity just becomes any other religion. There's nothing special about it at all. There's nothing set apart. And, we can't follow Jesus without, if we follow Jesus and we become a Christian and religious, and we become pious and judgmental and hateful, and start looking at the world and thinking what pieces of garbage they are, that's not it. That ain't it. At all, that's not it. And you see it everywhere. Even in the quote-unquote good old boy churches, you see it. You're going to see that. Because it starts at the pulpit. But the warning sign is in the parking lot. They have, first of all, there's a building. Second of all, he's probably got his own parking spot. Okay? If you see that, there's a problem. Then you go inside, right? What do you see? What do you see? Look around. Anything about money? That's a problem. Why, Sean? Why is that a problem? Because it was never supposed to be that way. Ever. That is not what it was for. The priests were to serve the people of God. They lived lowly lives. They had absolutely no inheritance of what the children of Israel had. They were given the Lord as their inheritance. Every person in history that had a strong calling in the Lord, a strong calling in Jesus Christ, did not care, wasn't like me, okay? Didn't care about fashion, didn't care about any of this. They didn't care about it. What they cared about was the Spirit of God moving within them and falling on the people. That was their concern. Their commission was the growth of the kingdom of heaven, making citizens of heaven. That is their absolute goal, always. There's nothing else. And what I see all around is a people that are obsessed with the things of the world and selfish, and that's it. So how do we come to truth? How do we come to truth if the truth isn't being told? A partial truth is not truth. So authority, money, why? God sends Himself to earth in the form of a man. And He works in construction for 30 years. 30 years He worked in construction. So at the age of 30, He starts His ministry. Guess what? He's walking around. He's getting the people out of these places. And they're meeting in the open air. Why? Because He gave everything He had to the poor. Everything. All of it. And the apostles, they may have not been able to feed multitudes like Jesus could, by magic, making bread and fish magically appear. But they gave everything they had to the poor. They followed His example to the letter. They had nothing. Their whole purpose in being here was to serve Him. And He led the example. He could have opened a building. He could have had a cathedral. He could have had come in on he could have rode in town on a white horse with 50 armed guys behind him on horses. He could have had a white horse. and they could have had uglier horses. And he could have come in on with scarlet and fine linen and a sword and all kind of stuff. But he didn't. He came in on the colt of a donkey that belonged to another person. You don't ever hear him talking about clothes other than, don't worry about what you'll wear. Don't worry about what you'll eat. Don't worry. I got you. That was how he rolled. But today, we build cathedrals and stadiums, and why? We talk about the hungry, the homeless, the widow and the orphan. Do you see why they didn't charge? Do you see why they didn't? Anything they had was given to the poor. Why? Why didn't they have a building? It's hot outside, Sean. It's cold outside, Sean. Why? Well, okay, take all the money and give the people who don't have clothes, clothes. If they don't have coats, it's cold, give them coats. There's hungry people, feed them. Why invest millions of dollars into buildings and cathedrals and all this stuff? Give it to the poor. Meet outside. What's your concern? Is your concern Jesus, or is your concern comfort? Well, I gotta have my worship. Go outside and meet with an acoustic guitar. Why not? What's the problem? Is our concern heaven, or is it entertainment? We promote the behavior because we're selfish. Is it God we desire? These are questions we have to be able to answer. I have to answer, you have to answer. Because if we plan to become citizens of heaven and to enjoy or participate in the reign of the heavens, we got to get down and dirty with this. We really got to dig here, because what we're being taught is wrong. Everything you look at taught by the apostles is the opposite of what we're doing today. Everything Jesus taught is totally opposite. You know, and why do we have to have handfuls of money to spread the gospel? Why? I don't understand. The apostles absolutely were able to get everywhere they needed to get and spread the word of God and didn't have to charge a dime for it. So explain to me how God can't handle that. Explain it to me. You know, he challenges somebody to follow him, and he tells him, sell everything you have, give it to the poor. Why would he say that? Why would he always encourage everyone to give to the poor? Obviously, it was on his heart. Obviously, that is what true religion is supposed to be. And the caring for orphans, widows, and the poor. That's it. The gospel was spread around the whole world by the apostles. A small group of men, the whole world, the gospel was spread. And what's funny is, those guys with no money were able to spread the true gospel, and with all the billions of dollars the church has today, we can't get it out there. Explain that to me. True men of God concern themselves with the thoughts of Jesus Christ. They follow after the mission of Jesus and what he taught. How close are we to that today? And one of the things that's funny to me, it's almost ironic, because you'll see these TV preachers, you know, guilt the people over tithes, and they always use Malachi 3:10. It's really interesting. But if you go one chapter back, in Malachi chapter 2, you see very interestingly, and we go to Malachi 2, 7 through 9. Malachi 2, 7 through 9. So we go to Malachi 2, 17. Malachi 2:17, and this is, you see this where all who do evil are good in the eyes of the Lord. And you look in the New Testament and you can see we're no longer bound by the law. So again, we're back to this carnal Christianity concept that it's acceptable to break God's laws because you love this anyway. Because He died on the cross. Exactly. Because He died on the cross, whatever. Do whatever and you're forgiven, it's all good. No, not the case. And we go Malachi 2, 4 through 6. And now we go to Malachi 3, 5 through 7. I, the Lord, do not change. I, the Lord, do not change. So why would He give us laws and throw them in the garbage can? He wouldn't. So, you, the descendants of Jacob, are not destroyed. Ever since the time of your ancestors, you have turned away from my decrees and have not kept them. Return to me, and I will return to you, says the Lord Almighty. But you ask, how are we to return? And interestingly enough, the other day I was looking in some writings of John, and I saw an interesting list of, I guess you could say, fruit of the Spirit from John's perspective, respected apostle. Belief in God, fear of God, obedience to Jesus, trust, knowledge, love, communion with Jesus Christ, meekness, goodness, brotherly love, chastity, integrity, firmness of faith, fearlessness, freedom from sorrow, and honesty. You look at that list, that's a beautiful list. Wonderful. That's how you get close. That's how you get back. And that's not just for ministers. That's for people who follow Jesus. So you see this concept of Balaam. Balaam. False prophecy for financial gain. It's an issue. In 2 Peter, Peter addresses it. It's also addressed in Jude. Peter says, they have left the straight way and wandered off to follow the way of Balaam, son of Bezer, who loved the wages of wickedness. And who is Peter talking about? False prophets. For they mouth empty, boastful words, and by appealing to the lustful desires of the flesh, they entice people who are just escaping from those who live in error. They promise them freedom, while they themselves are slaves of depravity. For people are slaves to whatever has mastered them. And you see, Jesus says, you can't have two masters. You're going to hate one and love the other. You can't serve God and money. So what do we get from all of this? So we had the first two parts of Invest in Eternity. We found the pearls for what investing in eternity is. We absolutely know how to do it. And now the challenge is doing it. But as far as being administered the gospel, what do we do? What are we supposed to do? What's the mold for the church? Because the first church did the opposite of what we're doing. Absolutely, what we do compared to that, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. Because they gave all the money to the poor. They met outside in the open air. They did not do what we're doing. They didn't do it. They didn't care about being comfortable. They didn't care about the air condition. They didn't care about the band. They didn't care about the banners on the walls. They didn't care about having copper roofs and all kind of ridiculousness. They cared about feeding the poor. They cared about providing homes to people that were homeless. They cared about providing clothes and shelter for people that didn't have it. Because that was showing Jesus. That was Christ's heart. That's what He did. He worked in construction for 30 years before He started His ministry. What the heck are we doing? There's no real reverence for the Lord in all that nonsense. So what's the mold? What do we do? The ones that can hear the Lord's voice, that know they have a calling for Him, should do it the way He did it. We don't need cathedrals and stadiums. We don't need it. It's not necessary. You follow the call. That's it. You spread the gospel for free. You don't charge. People donate, give it to the poor. What's the problem? Why can't that be done? He said don't have titles. It was crystal clear in Matthew chapter 23. Do not have titles. That's it. You don't have a title, and you give to the poor. And you care for orphans and widows. That's it. It's that simple. That's the mold for the church. The church of 2020 should be that. Groups of people helping people. That's it. Is it going to happen? Probably not. But it's a beautiful thing to know what it's supposed to be and getting as close as we can get. The Lord is giving us a desire for His true heart and a desire for Him stronger than I've ever heard of. Amazing, amazing things He's doing inside of people. And that's what it's all about. It's all about knowing Him. And being real, being honest. Being who you are is a wonderful thing. We shouldn't try to be stuff we're not. Pushing concepts on people to all these rules and regulations to abide by. Look, man, if God's calling you to be His child, yeah, you got changes you got to make, but He's going to help you do it. We don't need to push that on other people and make that their responsibility. They got to hear His call. It's not our responsibility to police the world. We need to get to a point where we quit looking at the world like it's a piece of garbage. And we need to look in the mirror as Christians, as the people of God. We need to look in the mirror, look ourselves in the mirror and say, what can we do differently? Because that's the only way we're going to make it. That's the only way. Anyway, guys, thanks for visiting Saints, Priests, and Watchmen. And if you know anybody that could benefit from these videos, we encourage you to share them with them. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe so Saints, Priests, and Watchmen can continue. And as always, we ask for nothing but your support, that being you. We'll see you next time.
While traveling on this straight and narrow road, I must press on to obtain my goal. He guides my steps